all of you for being here in honor of a great man, a giant of a man. Joe, as you know, is the cornerstone of a lot of things, and a man who unassumingly gets the job. Well, I'll give you a little bit of history of the DaVinci Center and how it started, okay? Because there are different renditions of that during the 60s and 70s. There was a show on television that was moderated by a guy named Dave Susskind. I don't know if some of you remember that. It was on PBS, the Public Broadcast System. And one day he had as a guest on his show, Monsignor from Washington, D.C. His name was Monsignor Gino Baroni. And Monsignor Gino Baroni was the head of the Urban Ethnic Center in Washington, D.C. And it was the National Center for Urban Ethnic Affairs. What Gino Baroni did was he would deal with the most populous ethnic group in each city around the country, because it was his belief that we must maintain the ethnicity of all the groups that had migrated from their native land to the United States. And he felt that their culture should be preserved because the United States is like a tapestry, he said. And every one of the colors in the tapestry comes together to make a beautiful picture. And so with that, Gino Baroni started that National Center for Urban Ethnic Affairs. Now meanwhile, in Providence, Rhode Island, there was another guy named Gino, and he was a social worker. And Gino Maini was his name. Gino was watching that program, and immediately he contacted Monsignor Gino Baroni in Washington, invited them to Providence. Monsignor Baroni was quite impressed with Providence and felt that we should deal with the American population here in this city. And so he handed it to Gino Maini and said, see what you can do in organizing the neighborhoods. So with that, Gino Maini contacted Monsignor DeMeo at St. Anne's Church, and Monsignor DeMeo asked Gino Maini to speak at a Holy Name Society meeting, okay? And then it began. I heard about this because it was in the church bulletin, and went to that meeting and heard Gino Maini. Now it just happened that Gino Maini and I had a tie because we used to work together at a local hospital when we were in our college days. So after Gino explained what was going on, I said, you know what? You know, I love my neighborhood and I always wanted to do something for it. And at that time, just, you know, looking back, if you remember Charles Street, there were about 35 storefronts, 18 of them were boarded up because there were young men and kids hanging all over the streets, stopping traffic, doing things, actually charging protection to the senior citizens sitting in the park. They were charging them 25 cents a day to sit there peacefully. And we had a bunch of youngsters with nothing constructive to do. Our seniors had nothing to do. So basically what we said is someone's going to do something, and we felt that it was someone. And so what happened was, after that meeting, with the help of Gino Maini, Gino said, what you're going to do is you're going to get a few people together and form a corporation. And so we began. And the very first person that I went to was Joe Lonardo. I knew that Joe had sound judgment. I knew that Joe was very close to the Lord. He had organized retreats. He had done so many things with St. Anne's Holy Name. He had done so many things that I knew of that were charitable, and he did them very quietly with all of the organizations he was involved in. So Joe was the first person I asked. Then I asked Bill McCoy, who was a guidance counselor at Mount Pleasant High School, who lived on Joe Street. Frankie Gianpetro, who lived on McGregor Street, but taught chemistry at the Barrington High School. And Benny Zelenga, B. Lucius Zelenga, better known as Benny, was the fifth person, and myself. Benny was an attorney who not only gave us his service, but gave us our first storefront, 525 Charles Street. And so we put the corporation together, began 525 Charles Street, then we got the second storefront, at 527 Charles Street, the third storefront at 464 Branch Avenue, and we started our programs, and then Al Giuliano let us use his restaurant, and we started a meals program at the advocacy of Monsignor DeMeo, because he said we got to do something for seniors. So we did, and then in 1978, Buddy Cianci was good enough. He was mayor at the time, and I went to him and asked him for some money to build a building instead of working on the storefronts. And in fact, he gave us a $350,000 grant. And this was a parking lot for the school department that you're sitting on. Actually, it was Leonard's Pond before that.
Yes.
And
Yes, it was.
Leonard's Pond got filled in, it became a parking lot for the school department. And then we had an architect that liked this spot. He says, let's build it here. So we went through all of the red tape we had to go through. And it took a couple of years, actually, because this belonged to the school department. The school department was having their parking lot displaced, so we had to build a parking lot on the recreation department land. We had to go to the recreation department to get them to give us the land. And then we finally made a deal, recreation department wanted the land down near the brook as a wildlife refuge. So we got that grant, we got the Parks Department their land, they relinquished the parking lot, and the school department relinquished this piece of property on which we are sitting today. So here we are, and programs developed, and with Joe's guidance, Joe was chairman of the board for about 12 years, and with Joe's guidance, these programs grew, especially once we got into this building. And we started developing programs, not only for the youth on the street, because we had developed several softball leagues and a number of recreation programs to get everybody off the street. And then the idea was to get the coaches to talk to these people and get them, when I say these people, I mean, they're all my friends. I grew up with them, and they're the sons and daughters of a lot of people that we know, but very, some, that we probably saw grow and do some good things. But we got them all involved in counseling and education. A lot of them went to college. So we knew there were a lot of resources out there. We pulled them off the street and got them into socially acceptable programs, okay? And many of them have gone and done so well, become professionals. Some of them that were on that corner are doctors today, believe it or not. Some of them are very successful business persons, attorneys, teachers, CPAs. We got one guy who's the head of the State Street Investment Bank and the comptroller up in Boston. These were all people that were right here on Charles Street. And so the center went on and on and on. And to the point where we serve between 5,000 and 6,000 persons per year, unduplicated. That's persons that come through that door. One time is counted once. There's 5,000 to 6,000 that come through the doors. And essentially, that we probably serve some of those people, a dozen, 15, some come to the meal every day. So there's what we would call service units is over 200,000 service units per year. Now, some ask about the name, Leonardo da Vinci or Da Vinci Center. How did you come across that? Well, if you remember back in the 70s, the Godfather films were out, okay? And all of our friends on the corner were emulating the Godfather, and they wanted to be just like the Godfather. And so they did things that were probably somewhat socially unacceptable, let's just say. And we thought that we should try to reverse that trend, And we thought of naming the center after someone who might be, at the time, by the way, the neighborhood was 74% Italo-American in the population. So we thought we would have to come up with a Italo-American figure that the youngsters, the positive one that the youngsters could relate to, okay? And so we